Welcome back to the channel. I'm Colin and this will be the follow-up video for the Aperion tweeter review that I made some time ago. I'm very sorry for the delay. I was in the middle of switching to the DALI Menuet speakers, so the testing was delayed. So let's get straight to it. I'll talk about my subjective impressions on all three of the tweeters, the PST, RST and DST. Let's talk about the PST first, the most budget tweeter of the three, the planar tweeter. The PST is the hardest tweeter to integrate with my Menuets for some reason. No matter how I shift the PST towing them in and out, it won't sound quite as good as the other tweeters. It's something that I can't quite get my head around. The PST sounded a bit harsh and bright. There's a graininess to the treble. It doesn't sound outright horrible, but it just didn't sound natural. And I do not hear the improvement in the precision of imaging like I heard on the other two. After a lot of trial and error, I measured the PST to see why it's not sounding like I expected. I found that instead of extending the frequency response of my speakers, it's actually creating a peak at around the 8K region even when the crossover is set to 16 kHz, and making the upper treble even rolling off earlier, maybe because of phase cancellation. I'm not sure why they don't integrate with the Menuets properly, but no matter how I place them, they don't tend to perform as expected. Then is the other two tweeters, the RST, the ribbon tweeter, and the DST, the dual firing AMT. Using both of these tweeters, there was an obvious improvement in the sound. The clarity of the acoustic instruments like the guitar, violin, and things like cymbals were the most obvious. It seemed like you can hear the strings of a violin or a guitar vibrate. The decay became longer for these instruments, and the vocal point or the location of where these instruments are coming from sounded much smaller and narrower, making the imaging very precise and accurate. These two tweeters elevated the clarity and resolution of these instruments in a smooth, natural, and non-fatiguing way. The depth of a stage also sounded deeper with the two tweeters. They do sound very similar to my ears, but the dual firing tweeters, the DST, adds a small but noticeable depth and a longer decay to the sound. Interestingly, the effect is also noticeable when measured. My room is quite well damped in the upper region, but when measuring the T20 times, which is the time for frequencies to decay by 20 decibels, the DST had an overall longer ringing time than the RST, about 30 milliseconds more. So the dual firing tweeters act as an ambience tweeter on the DST, and it does work if you want your room to sound a bit more lively. Overall, in terms of sound, there is a significant improvement in texture and resolution in instruments, and an overall improved depth when I use the RST and DST with my DALI Menuets. If I had to choose one for my setup, I would get the RST for myself. It integrates the best with my system and provides the best treble extension. I wanted to share my thoughts when trying the different tweeters on two different speakers, the DALI Menuet and Morphadell Denton 80s, and some general thoughts I had when reviewing these tweeters. First, regarding the placement, I find the tweeters to work best when put directly on top of the tweeter and right on the edge. So on speakers with an on-axis tweeter like the Menuet, you can center it right in the middle. And for off-axis designs like the Denton, you can align the super tweeter right above the original tweeter. Second, with my two tweeters, I find that the response is the most natural when the tweeter is flush the front baffle. Your speakers may vary depending on speaker design, but that was my experience. My speakers are just placed around 1.5 meters apart, so if you have a wider setup, it might be helpful to slightly toe in the tweeters. Last, I think it is very difficult to achieve an upper treble region with almost no roll-off for most setups like the graph Aperion has on their site. Because the vertical dispersion on these tweeters are relatively narrow. To achieve a minimal roll-off in ultra-high frequencies, you really need to sit at the height of the super tweeters, and not the normal tweeter, which I think not a lot of people will be able to achieve, unless your main speakers are those shorter tower speakers. If it's a stand mount, it's usually already adjusted to be listened at the original tweeter height. So this is the comparison video of the three Aperion tweeters. Remember, it is also important to make sure the Aperion tweeters matches the sensitivity of your main speakers, or they won't integrate well. A measurement mic or the house curve app is also a useful tool when positioning the tweeters. But of course, the final decision is up to your preference and your own hearing ability. I will also make a sound demo of the three tweeters in a separate video. I'll link it in the description when it's available. If you're interested in purchasing the super tweeters, feel free to use the affiliate links below. Thank you very much for watching.